Welcome everyone to episode 19 of Filling the Void, entitled The Evolving World of Content Distribution. My name is Ben Andrews and I'm your host for tonight. FTV was started by the Seattle Film Summit and the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience teams during the COVID quarantine, and it was just a simple effort to support the creative community. And now here we are almost into September. AFMX Festival will be online starting September 22nd all the way through the 27th. Stay tuned in September for an FTV episode focused entirely around a preview of AFMX's festival. And stay tuned next week as we release and discuss the Seattle Film Summit 2020 virtual schedule. So today we're talking about distribution. Distribution is, I don't know about the rest of you, but it's still a scary word for me. As a filmmaker, I have a couple projects that have received distribution, but I will tell you, I would be lying if I said I understand even a quarter of that world. Honestly, sometimes it feels like distribution is learning a whole new language. Words like semi-theatrical release, DIY release, VOD, SVOD, AVOD, FVOD, TVOD. They all sound like species of bugs to me. Then there's all exclusive, there's foreign distribution, ancillary rights, producer reps, producer's corridor, payment waterfalls, media rights, lions, tigers, and bears. So tonight's episode is about giving us a little bit of common ground to launch from. We're going to talk about what some of these things mean. And now that pandemic and the reset has kind of happened, we're going to see where it's all going. So without further ado, Todd, our voice of God, can you bring in our guests?
They're on their way, Ben.
Well, thank you, Todd. That's very kind of you. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
Doing great.
Doing all right.
So I'm going to start with Ben. It looks like Mark is not tagged in yet. So Ben Dobyns with the awesome hat. I'm going to say Ben Dobyns is the co-founder of the Fantasy Network, which is a community-owned distribution and crowdfunding platform that serves a global community of independent sci-fi and fantasy filmmakers, fans, artists, and creators across that board. I think Ben and I met as part of the Zombie Orpheus days, which I think you're still working with those guys.
Oh, yeah.
And Ben's team was one of the first that I witnessed really developed that relationship with their fan base. And I was just impressed with how they took this, they rolled from one film into another and built that community and let them get involved in their decisions. So I just love the innovation that's come out of your camp, Ben. Thank you for being here today.
Glad to be here.
Next, we got Mr. Malloy, Tom Malloy, who is actor, writer, producer. He's a passionate, driven filmmaker, committed to telling stories with a commercial appeal. I mean, if you take a look at Tom's IMDb, he's acted and produced in dozens of films. He's won multiple awards and has also written several films. In 2016, Tom co-founded the sales and distribution company, Lighthouse Distribution. And Glasshouse maintains a presence at AFM, EFM, and Cannes, and has grown from 2 people to 7 people, and recently even added a TV sales department. One thing Tom doesn't know is, well, he does know that he's the author of a best-selling book called Bankroll, which has 2 editions and was considered the gold standard book of indie film financing. And then in 2019, Tom co-founded Filmmaking Stuff HQ, which is a premier online training platform for filmmakers. We're going to learn a little bit more about that soon. But what Tom doesn't
I'm dying. I'm dying to find out what I don't know.
what Tom doesn't know is that as somebody who started into the industry at post age 30, talk about myself here,
Okay.
and never wanted to really go to LA or a major film market just to see if he could be involved in the industry on a satellite market. Your book was really the foundation for the direction I went. And your book was all about taking all these industry standards, wrapping your own personality into it, and just hustling and kind of defying this lane that everybody has to go into. And so your book was a major book for me as I went down this lane.
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you very much. Very cool.
So thank you for being here, gentlemen.
Happy to be here. Yeah.
So why don't we just start with what you guys are working on right now? Tell me a little bit more about your organizations, and Ben, we can just start with you if you want.
Sure. So, the big thing that we've always been about is creating community, and especially trying to have as little friction as possible in the relationships between filmmakers and their audiences. We want to empower audiences to support the shows that they love. We want people working together, and kind of the fundamental here is, people get involved with funding these shows and being a part of this. And what they're learning is how to engage in collective grassroots action to achieve a common goal. And I feel like those are useful skills to have right now, even beyond the world of filmmaking. So so we did start Zombie Orpheus in 2010. Then made some partnerships that evolved into the Fantasy Network. So we're still producing content at Zoe. And now we are kind of trying to fill in all the other missing pieces for indie filmmakers like us at the Fantasy Network. We want people to be able to essentially manage their relationships with their audience and be actively involved from every stage of a project, beginning from development and concept to pre-funding to crowdfunding, through all of production, and then have the ability to handle fulfillment and distribution straight to the fans through there. And the whole and what's up on the screen here, we're just tomorrow launching our next piece of the puzzle. We've been working for the last year on building a Patreon replacement and integrating it into the system, so you can watch a show and subscribe to the filmmaker right from the show page. And so having all of these different elements completely integrated, like very, very finely focused vertical integration, means that people don't have to have 6 different logins or a dozen different logins as filmmakers. They can just go through this process, stay involved, stay active, and best of all, with the new crowdfunding elements, have all their digital rewards in one place instead of scattered across the internet.
Awesome. It sounds like a lot of innovation from what I'm hearing.
We're trying.
Tom, what's going on in your camp, brother?
I've just been sitting at home, just enjoying the quarantine. No, there's all different aspects. This year has been a growth year for the company. I'd love to thank my team of, Michelle, Rob, David, Michael, Marco, Brian. Everybody has stepped up. So what we did is, Glasshouse was very much a boutique sales company, and we grew and grew. And it started because it was myself and a guy named Brian Glass. It's the Glass House, but then it became, you could see everything going on, fully transparent. And that just did well with filmmakers. And we went to all these markets, and we started getting buyer relationships, and we were kind of known as the fun sales company because we like to have fun and go to parties and stuff. And so that helped. And so what we did is that late last year, we started 2 new labels, one called Lighthouse Distribution. So Glasshouse Distribution, GlassHouseDistribution.com is the main company. But then Lighthouse Distribution, which is LighthouseDistribution.com, is for the smaller films and in more volume, like the festival films. And so we could take a film like that and distributed everywhere and 100 platforms, versus Glasshouse is mostly sales to territories. And then we have another one called Bloodhouse Films that's primarily horror, and we're just we're developing that. And like you said, TV in the intro there. But at the same time, so TV we're selling, we're also developing shows, but that obviously there was a little bit of a hold there. with everything going on. At the same time, we have films, you know, ranging from the small. We just did a micro budget horror contest with RB and Amanda and the great people at Stage 32. And we were about to announce the winner of that. And then we're making that film. So that's a horror movie. And then we have a smaller action film we're doing. But then we also have, you know, Michelle and I are kind of the co-partners in Trick Candle Productions with my production company. And then we're, you know, we have bigger films that we're getting going. We're trying to get a pretty big one going in Oklahoma right now. So at the same time, trying to hit every aspect and stay ridiculously busy. And I'm doing this podcast in the middle of Film Art, which is a market, but they're all virtual right now. I'd be in Hong Kong for Film Art. Actually, it was in March, but now it's moved to now. And so I think yesterday I did 15 or 16 Zooms. Today I'm at like 10 or 11. After this, I have 3 more tonight. So because it's on Hong Kong time. So always, you know what? I'm only stressed when I'm bored. That's what I always say.
How are you dealing with Zoom fatigue? Because I do 5 or 6 and I'm like, I need to go mummify myself.
A lot of alcohol. No, you know, the first day of Virtual Can, we did 68 Zooms in 1 week. And the first day we did 21 in a row. That's like the record that's going to stand as far as like, oh my God, at the end, we're just like, give me a bottle of wine and shut up, you know, and we just like, it was just, but at the same time, it's down to a pretty good science with a lot of the buyer meetings. Like, you know, you get down first, you got to talk about COVID and what's going on wherever they are and make sure everybody's safe. And then it's like, what genres are you looking for? You know, and what's the kind of mandates you're looking for? And then we tell them, well, we got this, and we pitch them our movies. And then great, send us some trailers. Because I'm not big on the whole sharing video on Zoom because it's going to be jerky and it's going to be, so I said, I kind of made the mandate for the company, no sharing videos. Like we send it afterwards, they watch it on their own time and make sure it's going to be, you know, smooth. So.
Well, I think we're lucky here tonight because both of you are content creators and you still are maintaining your content creation lane, but you're also into this innovation side of, you know, basically distribution, representation of clients. I still don't understand how you guys can navigate both at the same time. But instead of asking that question, I'm going to get to the point of, we obviously know even before 2020, the last decade, we have been in the decentralization of the film industries, like the satellite industries, satellite people like myself who live in Seattle or smaller states who can make content. What do you recommend as content creators and now fully aware of the distribution world? Where is the best place to get their distribution 101? Like, where does a filmmaker start once his film is done? Because you and I both know 7 times out of 10, it's probably better. They're just thinking about their film and they're not thinking about distribution. So,
oh yeah, 9 times.
I
don't want to cut. Ben, do you want to go first? You want me to go first? Who do you
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, you know, look, I'm not here obviously tonight to promote filmmaking stuff HQ, but I do have modules on there specific to film distribution. One's called International Sales and Distribution. Like you can come on there, just purchase that one, or if you're a member, you get access to all that stuff. And then there's one on the American film market, which is basically you can apply to all the other ones. But the short answer for the purposes of this is you have to know the markets. If I'm saying AFM, EFM, or Cannes, EFM being Berlin in February, obviously this year is different, right? We got through Real Screen in Berlin. I'm looking because the market schedule is right on the wall here. And then everything got canceled. So this year's different. But if you were to go to those and you were to go to AFM and walk around and see the business side of it, but because you're totally right. 90, it's not 9 out of 10, it's 98 maybe out of 100 filmmakers are just going, well, let's shoot it and let's see what happens afterwards. We'll get into Sundance, we'll get a deal. That's what they're thinking. And so if you see that side of it, you start to think from more of a business mindset.
Yeah, well, it's like, you go to Cannes and the experience you have, if you're over there, you see all the glitz, all the glamour, but you go underground at the Palais du Festival, you go to where the market's actually happening, no more glitz, no more glamour. You have those horrible fluorescent lights, but that's where the deals are. And you as a filmmaker kind of have to be able to think of both worlds, both in terms of what's exciting about my project, but also how do I do the nuts and bolts? How do I just dig down to that foundation?
Yeah, and there's no time that you can't, go and do that. Meaning, if you don't have a film now, it's fine to go and make those connections. I was going to. This would have been my 15th, I believe, AFM in a row. I've only been to Cannes maybe 8 times, but my colleague Michelle was like 16, 17 times. But she started going when she didn't have anything. Just go listen and meet people and be friendly at the bar and get business cards. Oh, you're the acquisitions guy? Great. Keep in touch with those people. So then when you were doing a movie, it's like, hey, and now I'm doing something, and relationships. This business is obviously a lot about relationships. So, yeah.
And I think another piece of it too, because we do things so backwards over here at the Fantasy Network and at Zombie Orpheus, is always as a filmmaker thinking about where's the audience, number one, and you don't know where you're necessarily going to find them. Cory Doctorow has this phenomenal old analogy about the dandelion. When you blow the dandelion seeds, you don't know where they're going to take root. You can't track all of them. And so our strategy has always been about, let's forget the silos. Let's get the content everywhere it can be, but then build into the content the hooks that are going to allow people to funnel back into the active community. So we always look at it from the, when we're putting content out there, it's like, from our end, free is fine. I'll happily release a film for free to be viewed anywhere on the internet, because that's going to bring the audience in who are going to fund the next film. And each project becomes its own advertising. So we're always thinking, how do we bring people in? How do we get them involved? How do we hook them so that they're going to come in and fully fund the next project before we shoot it?
So we got a couple questions coming in from YouTube. And I think this is a good one so the audience can get an idea of your guys' framework. This one comes in from Winfield Bazell, and they're asking, what are the various size of budgets of films that you guys produce or sell or distribute, and at what different levels? So I'm just wondering if you can give like a little framework of kind of the projects, budgets, and that you work in. Tom, we can just start with you.
Sure. So it looks like 3 different questions. So it produced is it could be anywhere. I've done it as low as $100,000 film up to maybe the biggest indie I did $7-8 million. After that, it shouldn't be. And even now, you shouldn't be doing movies that big unless you have Matthew McConaughey or somebody like completely sellable. As far as sales and distribution, let me say this. Distribution, we were doing the smaller films, but I'll just make a little asterisk for both sales and distribution. The budgets of the movie, a lot of times buyers will say, not a lot of times, but sometimes buyers will say, what's the budget of the movie? I'll say, I have no idea. Like, that's not our responsibility. We're just to sell the hell out of it. So meaning you could deliver me a beautiful film that we love and it's got cast. Maybe you did it all on favors. It was 100,000, 50,000, but it looks like $2 million movies. We're still selling it based on the quality of the movie and the people that are in it and the genre and everything. Versus you might have spent $3 million and you'd cast, some has-been actor, I don't know, somebody from the 1980s, Michael Dudikoff, and that's your lead role. And it's like, we're not going to get many sales on that. But at the same time, I don't need to know the budgets. I just need to know what's the genre, is it sellable, who's going to buy it, and what's the production value of the movie.
I think for us, it varies dramatically based on the financing structure of the film. Because we've set ourselves up specifically to serve the indie science fiction fantasy filmmaking community. And a lot of this came out of the web series world. We have shows that we're distributing that were made for $5 to $10 grand. And then we have up to like the Mythica series that was 5 films up in, I'm not allowed to say the full number, but we're millions of dollars, that did all the traditional territory by territory by territory sales and, European television and kind of all the pieces cobbled together that way. And a lot of it comes down to what is the goal for the project, because the cap for crowdfunding right now we tend to have kind of 3 tiers. If you're going to go straight to the audience, that there's a 10 to 20 grand tier, there's the 150 to 200 grand tier, and the most I've seen a project that doesn't have Hollywood talent attached making crowdfunding is like 442,000. So realistically, that puts most of our projects in the 50,000 to 400 range, because that is the level that allows those direct filmmaker audience relationships to continue to exist.
How rapidly is this game changing? Because I mean, as an outlier, I look at distribution, and like I mentioned in the intro, the AVID and the SVOD, and I'm like, how quickly does this game change for you guys?
I'll just say that it changes all the time. There's new platforms coming up. And even, when you look at the bigger changes, the whole kind of downfall of DVD and Blockbuster, which was maybe like 2007 or 2008 or so, when that went out, then it was all this VOD product. And then even that, we were just having a conversation either today or yesterday, but we're just talking about how iTunes is like dead. That used to be, that was the VOD. If you got on iTunes, that was the one. Now it's like, who gives a, you don't want to get on the SVODs, and then you want to get on the AVODs, and I'll tell you that we have a direct relationship with Quibi, and they've been great for us, and that's just all free content with ads in it. So the ads are worth paying. So, there's always new platforms popping up, and some are funded, and, so there's always something. Yeah. Super.
And it's kind of a truism that whichever platform is awesome in 5 years is going to be absolutely terrible.
100%. I mean, it's Amazon, the perfect example. They cut their fees. Like they were doing something like 15 cents for every 6 minutes or something, and then it's like it turned into 6 cents an hour. It's like
we made so much money on Amazon for a few years.
Yeah, for a few years, and that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a time when YouTube was great, and there's no reason to touch it anymore. And again, that kind of comes down to when you're building your brand in whatever way, finding ways to retain the audience and bring them with you, regardless of which platform is hot this year.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier, that for a new filmmaker to really start understanding the distribution game, he or she needs to get out there to the markets, AFM, and but with this stuff, like the technical side of it, like, do you guys have go-to websites where you just keep up to date, or is it just because you're in the trenches and you assimilate the knowledge? What advice do you have there?
I go first. Do you want to go first, Ben? Yeah.
Go for it.
Go, Ben.
You go first.
I mean, it's a difficult question for me even to answer, because what we do is so different. Yeah. Everything is about finding the community and trying to acquire the audience, because that's where the power is. So so I'm spending way less time personally looking at, and I should be spending more time on the markets, but I don't have the time because I'm doing a million other things. But I'm spending way more time personally on kind of that direct audience interaction and where the culture is being created, and being a part of that and using that as a tool to bring people in. So,
I'll say that I think that in many ways it's what the main difference between Ben and myself is like that he's doing something unique and niche, which is fantastic. That's where, versus I'm doing more of the traditional stuff. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, he doesn't need to see the stuff that I'm looking at every day. But, and to answer that, just we're got to keep up with it. It's Deadline, Deadline.com. I get the notification. I mean, I probably get 40 emails from Deadline per day because I get the notifications. Mm-hmm. There's one called Synopsis, which CYNOPSIS, that gives a morning update as far as the TV platforms. But on top of it, it's just reading variety, reading the trades. I mean, and just staying. Well, I always use this as a great example. I was speaking at this. Am I still on? I just got a Zoom notification. You can hear me, Ben?
Yep.
No,
Okay,
you're
I
frozen.
just
You're
got a
frozen.
weird Zoom pop up. I was at this thing called the VIP Film Summit in Washington, D.C. A guy named Ron Newcomb. You may know him, Ben.
He's my business partner.
Oh, good. That's right. I could have sworn that I'm like, I didn't want to go there. I should have Googled it. Ron Newcomb is, I just talked to him today, funny enough. He's a great person. And in the morning, you know, like all the people that were the panelists were all working people, and I was one of the panelists. And in the morning, I had a bunch of, I was like, I flew to DC, I had a bunch of varieties. I just thought, well, I'm going to read them on the plane or whatever. And so that next morning, I'm sitting there having coffee, reading variety. And everybody that came up to me that was on the panel was like, oh, you got variety, where is it? Like, and I'm like, it's not part of the thing. I go, I brought it. So I probably had 6 panelists ask me that. Not one of the people that was there asked me that. And I went, well, there's a difference right there. I mean, like the people that are working are like, that's, you know, that's their trade. That's what they do. That's, you know, that where they know the news in and out and they want to see it. You know what I mean? But the people that weren't filmmakers yet were not, you could care less what I was reading, you know, right? So you see what I'm saying? It's just kind of staying your finger on the pulse, for lack of a better term. But if you go to markets too, you can go to you can go to these panels, you know, and sit there and listen and learn stuff, you know. And it's like, I never think to myself, oh, I'm above this panel. I'd go to any panel, you know what I mean? And just go and listen. And there's things that I learn, even if I think I know everything, I go, oh man, I didn't know this, you know. This Pongolo is a new platform, and you hear their kind of pitch. That's great. I love stuff like that. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk about. We got a question from Abby. I know you're familiar with Abby, Ben.
Abby is on the Fantasy Network Board of Advisors.
Oh, good.
Oh, very cool. And I know this is right up your lane, and it's a question about diversity. And matter of fact, I think it was 2017. When I invited you to be one of our panelists, Ben, and you're like, Ben, why don't you sacrifice my spot for less white people at your summit? And it was all good and candid, but how do you guys address diversity in your approach to distribution and content creation? I'm talking to you, Ben, first, and then
okay. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely essential, and part of it is, you know, the niche that we have carved out is for the people who do not feel served by Hollywood content for whatever reason. People who have been excluded from opportunities, people who have, who have stories to tell that the financing people freak out about. I mean, because Hollywood is fundamentally, even the liberal films are conservative in how they're structured, which is fine. So we're coming to this from the perspective of, how do we find the people who are telling the stories that desperately need our support in order to be told? How do we actively go out there and build these relationships and nurture these filmmakers in order to do something extraordinary? So so building that diversity and building the systems of support and the culture of support, because it's very easy to fall into, let's just go and, you know, we're going to have a token Black filmmaker or whatever the case is. No, you have to think about the culture from the ground up, and you have to include people from multiple different perspectives at every stage and level of how the organization and how the fan community are structured, because that's the only way to welcome people in. And we're guided very strongly by, I'm tired, I'm gonna forget the name. It's the problem of tolerance, where you can't, if you tolerate intolerance within your community, you're letting people in who make it unsafe for everyone else. And honestly, the vast majority of the work that I do is community building in order to create that space where filmmakers who have traditionally been silenced have the freedom and the ability to connect with their audiences, you know, without little Nazi wannabes breathing down their neck in the comments.
Mm-hmm. John, how about you?
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, as far as distribution, we always said we're genre agnostic. We don't have any genre that we specifically stick to, especially Glasshouse. At the same time, you know, it's a business where we're trying to get great films, and that could be urban, that could be, you know, it could be horror movies, it could be thrillers, action. We started expanding and doing more foreign language movies. We just took a German sci-fi. We're looking at some Korean films now. So for us, it's like, look, you have to understand that business, the business of sales is different, man. You know, it's like, we're selling good movies. I don't care who's in them. You know what I mean? It's like, I could literally care less. It's like, can this film sell? And I ain't gonna risk feeding my family and my 2 kids based on like, well, you know, I'd rather take this movie because it's diverse. I don't give a crap. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to make money because this is the business. I got to keep the lights on, right? Doesn't matter who's in the movie. So we are expanding as far as non-English films, because that for me is there's interesting. It's great films from all over the world, you know? So that's it. It's got to be a great film. I can't imagine seeing a movie and ever saying, well, you know, it's primarily Asian, I don't want to take it. No. It's like a great movie. If it is a great movie at the end of the day. So on the production side, that's different. The production side, yes, it's like, you know, we just try to be more inclusive and try to just, I mean, you're talking to a person I produced 2 LGBT films, and I've produced, I think, 5 movies that were female lead. So you have Ashley, which was an LGBT movie about bullying. And then you have Fairhaven, another LGBT movie. And then you have, you know, God, The Alphabet Killer, Love and Dancing, The Attic, Ashley. And there's another film that's escaping me right now. But again, anyway, 5 movies, all female leads. And so to me, it was always about the quality of the movie. That's it, you know?
Yeah, I think, you know, I'll use an example from the world of casting. When we set out to do Strowlers, we developed that show with the intent that it would be a global show that, you know, with people from all over the world. And the pilot episode was very specifically and intentionally inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement, by you know, talking about the effects of systemic racism, the effects of unchecked police brutality. And you know, a show like this had to have a really phenomenal cast of primarily non-white people. And what we heard as we began this casting process from a lot of people in the Seattle film community was, well, Seattle just doesn't have the talent. You're going to have to hire out of LA in order to find any Black actors who are any good. And I was pretty stunned by that. And ultimately we found phenomenal local actors, but we had to do active outreach. And that's the point that I'm working toward. That, you know, if we're sitting back and waiting for people to come to us, what we're going to get is the people who have very few hurdles to work over and who haven't been burned 100 times before, whether it's in the auditioning world or wherever else. So I strongly believe that if we do not do the active outreach, we're going to miss those amazing movies and those amazing talents and those amazing filmmakers, because they won't even know that they're welcome and they will never approach us with their movies.
Well, that's an interesting point. What is that? Let's dive a little bit deeper in that. What's active outreach mean to you? Is that, because obviously when you're casting, let's just focus on actors, because that's
Sure.
the example that you brought. Like, you reach out to all the agencies or the casting directors, but what you're talking about, what's that extra step?
Mm-hmm. It's making authentic community connections. It's saying, you know, like if a casting call says race doesn't matter, I guarantee you're going to have primarily white people show up for it, because the people have been burned so many times before, you know, are going to look at that and say, oh, that just means white, but they're afraid to say it.
Mm. Okay.
So you have to go out. I mean, it's everything from go to plays, go to shows, go to concerts, go to the schools, make the connections, be present in the community. When it comes to distribution, it's there's this process of building trust, because again, people have been burned so many times. So it's not enough to just passively be here. We're actively going out. We brought on a phenomenal show out of New York called Juju to the platform, and that was a long process of showing them that we were coming in authentically and could be trusted to have their backs, and weren't just sitting here looking for our token diversity. It's supporting filmmakers at every step of the way, and recognizing that there are systemic injustices that affect the levels of opportunity, and we have to do more than just wait for good content to find us.
Well, I'll tell you, as an outsider to the Fantasy Network, if there's anything that I've noticed about what you're doing over there, is that it's not just about making film. It is about creating a culture and a community, and it's all based around inclusivity. So that is noticeable from the outside. So you should celebrate that. Let's move on to Quibi. Tom,
What a shift. Yeah.
we're gonna just before we go too much deeper in that lane, we're gonna
All right,
switch
getting my
right
lips
over to
moist for this one. Yeah, all right, here we go. Quibi. Well, I mean, Quibi, everybody thought it was going to come on like a plague of locusts and just like take over. I mean, they had a lot of money behind it. The key was they were looking for content that was young and hip. They were trying to fill, it's almost like, and Ben kind of alluded to this, it's almost like if you're trying too hard to be the hip thing or be diverse, it just doesn't work, and they wanted to be like TikTok and generically make these short little things. And look, they had a ton of money behind it. It might be a timing thing, but I remember being at Real Screen and someone talking about, I'm sorry, I met the guy from Snap, and I think my colleague Michael talked to the person from Quibi, and it's like they didn't want anything, they wanted millennials and influencers and stuff like that. And that doesn't just necessarily translate into good content. Again, my thing is always good content. Not to get back to the race thing, but it was like, we're casting this the principal, but an actual high school principal, not the principal role, but the high school principal, but it is also the principal role of the movie. And it was like, the key is just to keep open. The best part about a high school principal is I've seen them in real life. They were 30 years old. I've seen guys that are 70 years old. So right away, we have an age range that we could keep completely open. And then I've seen all kinds of races. We could keep it race range, you know what I mean? That was completely open. And so, but it has to be a star, and so it could be Ice Cube. It could be Stephen Lang, who's 70, and it could be Bruce Willis, and it could be, so anybody so it's somebody that could sell that role. It's an action movie, And so, again, I think that maybe Quibi should have focused on the content more, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know anybody, and let's put it this way, I got a lot of, I have 2 teenagers. I don't know anybody that's like, let's watch Quibi. Like, I don't know anybody. Maybe I'm out of the loop, but I don't know if anybody's actively, people are saying, let's watch Netflix, watch HBO Max, let's watch, there's all kinds of Amazon Prime, but I don't hear that many people saying, let's watch Quibi. That's just me.
There have been so many generations of movements within content, and I look at Quibi and then I look back at the first generation and the proto generations of web series content. You look at the Guild, you look at what we did with the Gamers, you look at David Nett and Gold the series, you look at the Hunted. We invented short form web series 15 years ago. It's nice to see billions of dollars catching up to the idea that they exist and not understanding the elements that made them exciting and compelling.
Truth. All right, so let me ask you guys this. I'm switching lanes again because you guys obviously take pitches, a lot of pitches, and have over the years. And I know, like, I'm going to ask you what sets a film apart. And I understand that, good story and cast, I understand those elements, but we're probably to a point now where with the distribution of the access is the word I'm looking for, the access to good film equipment, the access to good education. Like there's got to be it's like the NFL. There's a parity building, and I know that's not necessarily true, but what really in your lane, when you see a pitch, you're like, damn, I that's what I need right there. I need to learn more about that film. Is there anything that sets it apart? Ben,
you go ahead, Ben. Go for it.
Oh, sure. I mean, generally, that a film has to be true to itself. You know, there are trash movies that I love, and there are art movies that I love, and the reason I love them is because there is a key vision that the filmmaker completely follows through on from the beginning, and that passion and that execution is the start. I'll share one story as well. The best pitch ever that instantly got me hooked, changed my life. Again, with Strowlers, I've told this before, but I have to tell it again. Our pilot leaked, and it leaked to a group of shamans in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, and they watched it and said, "This is us. You understand us," and basically reached out and said, "All right, come to Mongolia and shoot an urban fantasy set in the Strowlers world with us." Best pitch ever. One sentence, we're in. So it's about having something that is compelling and exciting and that speaks to a truth about your experience.
Well, I'll jump in. I'll just say that I mean, you're talking to a guy that teaches pitching classes, you know, and I taught at CBS at Raleigh Studios. I teach now, and you know, there's a whole pitch module on Filmmaking Stuff HQ. It's the key, I think. Look, it's tough to define what it is, except for being concise and clear to the point, and be exciting. You know, I did this speech in a place it's called Hacking Hollywood. It was one of these conferences in Florida earlier this year, and these guys gave me a pitch, and I said, "I'll give you $5,000 right now to option that." You know, and it was just off their pitch. I just thought it was so great. I'm not gonna say what it is, but still, and they ended up going with somebody else. But it was like the joke was, they got me, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, and Michelle, my colleague, says this. Rob, my colleague, said that you could give us a script that's The Godfather. It's tough if it doesn't have attachments and value. Meaning, Ben, if you show up and you have X actor, Y actor, and you have that, boom, I could get that funded, finance, we're going, you know. Or you say, I got 50% equity, you know, so that's value. So if you bring me a project with value and to have the good, exciting pitch, well, then you're in the best shape possible to try to get it going, you know. But again, the key, when I tell these people that I teach, because I do a thing with Carol Dean in intentional filmmaking, and yeah, she's a sweetheart and a great friend. And we teach, she does like the kind of law of attraction part of filmmaking, and I do the nuts and bolts, and we do these classes. And we do this, the favorite thing is this pitch class where everybody pitches on the class. So you get like 12, 14 pitches. And then I literally turn around and do the pitch back to them. And it's all improvised. I just go, here, let me do this. And I give them their movie back, and they freak out and they love it. And it's great. And they think, well, are you a natural pitcher? It's like, no, I've just done it thousands of times. You know what I mean? If anything you do, you know, I do jiu-jitsu 20 plus years. I'm good at it, but the people that are better at it just practiced way more than I did. You got beat up way more than I did. So with the pitching, I have been in rooms under boiler situations where I have gone, I forgot to say that so many times, and that's not a thing anymore, you know? And of course, there's always curveballs. No one's gonna be a perfect pitch every time. But I've gotten to the point, like with that action movie, I could pitch, you could throw ice water on me at 3 a.m. I don't know why you do that, and wake me up and say, pitch that movie. And I'd say, here, boom. And I'd get that pitch and you'd go, wow, that was great. It was concise, it was clear. You know, when I say limit it to 2 minutes, the people on the call go on for 15 minutes sometimes, you know, or I'm going, okay, wait, it's not 2 minutes anymore. You know, just be exciting.
So are you guys taking pitches on Zoom calls now? Is that what you're in the trenches on, Tom?
Well, we get pitched a lot of stuff all the time. I mean, I would say at least once a day I'm getting a pitch, just at least from a screenplay, you know, or I laugh because my colleague Michelle was on a call the other night where a guy pitched his personal story Wasn't a screenplay yet. It was just his personal story. And she said, well, what budget are you looking for? And he said 200 million. I'm not kidding. That's a true story. And it's like, we just love those. And at the same time, we're getting the pitches. I mean, like, we're always getting pitched movies. If you completed films, please send them. David Lawrence, our head of acquisition. That's what acquisitions people are for. Send it to David and he'll review the movie. So we're always looking for completed films or almost completed films. As far as development goes, again, if it's from scratch, we're not looking for that right now because we have our own from scratch. We have like 6 or 7 projects we're doing from scratch. But if you have value, hell yeah, that's literally just happened. About a week ago, somebody came on with a Western. I won't go into super detail, but he had actor A and it was in the millions. And I said, actor A is not enough for those millions, but I'll still read the script. I read the script, loved it. And I said, well, still we're at that same crossroad. Then about a week later, he came back, we got actor B, who is bigger than actor A and also in the movie. And I went, bam, now we're in. That makes sense. And so reached out, I got it half financed like that. And so hopefully, knock on wood, we'll get it going and shooting maybe before the end of the year.
Yeah, well, I think what I would say, because we're coming at this from a very, very different perspective, a very different model, and there's room in the world for both. The whole thing that we're setting out to do here is to help use the models that we've proved work to allow people to tell exactly the stories that they want to tell, which may not be marketable in the mainstream. They may not be a financial slam dunk, but if there are people out there who are going to love it and who are going to fund it, it's enough to get the story told and to get their story told in a way that wouldn't have been possible before. So when we're talking about pitches, when we're talking about what we're accepting, it all comes down to identifying those audiences who are going to love something so much that they're willing to directly support those filmmakers. And the disadvantage of that model, we're not working with millions of dollars. The advantage of that model, I get to make exactly the movies that I want to make. Mm-hmm. And no one is out there telling me what I can or cannot do. And having that freedom to tell the stories that are important and being able to replicate that for other people and to empower them and the audiences in the same way. And what we're doing is hard. It doesn't have the same rewards as traditional distribution, but the reward it does have is these stories get told. And I think that's valuable.
Preach. Well, I consider both of you, and by the way, Todd, we didn't just leave Mark in the waiting room, did we? Did he just not show up?
Oh no, there was supposed to be somebody else.
Poor Mark. Well, I'll have to catch up with him.
He didn't have anything interesting to say. No, I'm kidding.
This is better. I'm getting more content.
Mark has not knocked on the virtual door yet. But
it's all good. It's all good. So I kind of consider you guys Renaissance men, as in that you put your expertise into multiple lanes. And Tom, I'll just start with you because I know that you started out with an inspiration to be an actor, and then you manifested that shit by going out and becoming a producer so that you can act. And in this day and age, how do you balance all your writing, producing, and acting?
Well, I never ventured into directing yet, so that's one thing. But yes, that was initially, it's just the way life works in osmosis. But look, I am a ridiculous worker. I can't stress enough that I am only freaking out when I get bored. But I mean, look at this. These are days. This is like a day. Look at all the boxes that are checked off. I have a book of to-do lists. Every single day is a to-do list, including Saturday and Sunday. And check it off. And I make it especially tough to not finish a day. Like maybe out of 100 pages, maybe 1 or 2, I'll actually finish the day. So I'm always challenging myself to put too much on there. And that's the way I like it, But so what I'm saying with the osmosis is I started, yes, producing was a means to an end to try to get myself bigger roles in films and prove that I was better than the people that were on there. Like my first film was called The Attic, and it was the director of Pet Sematary. I raised the money, and it was Elizabeth Moss and myself. And I got the reviews, and I was trying to outdo her. I just wanted to make, show that I was on their level, because if you're doing your own film, Michelle and I talk about that all the time. It's like, we'll be watching a movie and there'll be one actor that's bad. Like there's some cast and maybe, and there's one that's like, oh, person so bad. And then we're like, oh, they brought the finance. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be the person that was the best version of that, where they were like, where's that guy? And so that was my means to an end. Then that stopped. I mean, like, meaning that initially that was the path, you know, Alphabet Killer, Love and Dancing, you know, and now it's like, you know, once distribution came, I produced films that I have nothing to do with. In Vino and Lansky, you know, these are movies that I didn't have an acting role in them at all. And so most of the stuff I'm doing is, you know, it's like, I mean, I've raised over 25 million private equity for film. And most of the stuff I'm doing now is not me. I had to post on Facebook the other day, my 2-minute highlight reel, because I'm like, just FYI, I still love acting. You know, I love producing. I love, you know, and the Writers Guild, you know, has been good to me over the past 20 or so years. And I've written maybe 30 plus screenplays, and I've option sold or maybe made into movies 24, 25 of the screenplays. So that was all, it's just hard work, man. You know, you got to look at this. I'll give one tip to people. It's like, you have to be in the game forever. That's it. You know, it's like, I've heard people say, here's a story I tell. I go, on the highest levels, what makes more money, an actor or a doctor? That's not even a question. An actor can make in one day what the best doctors in the world make in a year. You know what I mean? But everybody knows if you want to be a doctor, you got to go to school for 12 years. You got to take an internship, and you got to do this. You know how many times I've heard people say, oh, I gave the acting thing a try for 6 months. It's like, 6 months? You gave it a try for, that's not a try, man. You know what I mean? Like, how about you try for the rest of your life? How about you say every job outside of this you're working is just a support until, you know, not fall back, support until, let's use those two words, until you start making enough in the film business to live full time. And I haven't worked outside the film business in 20 years, in 22, 23 years. So it's like, you know, that's the key is being in it for the long run. And that's it.
The decade plan. I think I heard.
Yes, a multi-decade plan.
and I think, I can't remember who told me this, but they're like, if you're gonna go to LA, you got to be on the decade plan. And the first decade is just so people know you exist. That's it. Like, try to survive for a decade, and then the second decade, and the third decade, you're gonna be good.
Yeah. Well, because you only hear the lottery tickets. You only hear the person that went there and in a week they were, you know, and they were discovered, you know, and that's lottery tickets. So you have to put the work in. And that's, you know, I have a couple of friends that call me the hardest working guy in Hollywood. It's like, I don't want the title, but I just want, you know, I'm happy to always be busting my butt. That's it.
Well, Ben, same thing goes with you, and you're an innovator, and you're in lots of lanes because you're making your own content, you're producing, you're distributing. I'm always fascinated with, I label them Renaissance men, Renaissance women, people that just have an ability to take expertise into multiple channels, and I'm always intrigued about how they balance that. So how do you balance that?
Sure. I don't.
That's the best answer ever.
There's always more work. I can work a 12-hour day or an 18-hour day and get up the next day and do the same thing, and the task list will never end. And just trying to, you know, I'm just trying to balance that as best we can. We just finished with the Fantasy Network. We ended up helping Worldcon, the 78th annual Worldcon, virtualize and hosting the Hugo Awards. And that was, you know, those months of 18-hour days to build an entirely new system and you do the work. And I don't know that there's, I mean, it's very easy to kind of go onto social media and talk about, look, here I am, I'm doing all this work nonstop, and to then kind of expect accolades for that. But at the end of the day, people can't see that background work. What they see is the product. What they see is the community. What they see is the story that's told. So I'd rather focus on that.
Yeah, we say that all the time. It's like, it's if you were a car salesman or, you know, a builder or something like that, and you're just like, dude, I put in 30 hours yesterday. And it's like, yeah, well, you can't do that in a day, but just let's say you put in 20 hours yesterday. But it's like, what, did you sell a car? It's like, or well, I didn't get the house built, but I did put in a ton of hours. It's like, it doesn't matter. It is a results-based business, you know? So Look, if you're not getting results and you are putting that time in, then change your approach. Then try new things. Then become an innovator, and try something different. Think outside the box. Create your own platform, whatever it is that's different. But the key is take action. And so if you're going forward and you feel like you're spinning your wheels, then make a shift. And do something else. If you charted anybody's course, especially my course, it's boom, 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 all over the place. You know what I mean? It's like if you want the straight line, that's going to be tough. But it's the best way is to learn and readjust and make changes.
And not get yourself into too narrow a path. Like you're talking about, you want to bounce around. There's value in building those skills and those other experiences. I've been part of how I stay sane is I support my film career with my music career, which is really an asshole thing to say to all the musicians out there who are trying to support their music careers with other careers. But it's like that balance of being able to say, all right, it's the weekend. I have this gig, I have that gig. I'm going to go do this. It's still work, but it's refreshing and rejuvenating because it's not just the same grind over and over and over again. And that allows keeping enough space in your life to continue experiencing life is especially important as a filmmaker. You see so many filmmakers out there who, they've gone straight to film school, they've gone straight into Hollywood, and they don't have anything to say because they haven't gone out there and built the experiences that aren't just reflecting movies that have been made before. So I'm always going to advocate for expanding beyond that.
Yeah.
Well said. So we're down to our last couple of minutes here, gentlemen. So why don't we, Tom, what's your 3 favorite movies?
Oh gosh, 3 favorite. Well, I'll tell you that I can name 2. I mean, I can name that Casablanca I've seen, multiple times. It's just a perfect Hollywood film. On the Waterfront is another film because to me that was, well, 1, his last name is Malloy in the movie, but 2, he, that changed acting as far as Brando is concerned. I would say the 3rd would have to be, I mean, I'm a big old time. I would love to do more contemporary for you, but I'd have to go with All About Eve, which was to me one of the best overall as far as the Oscar winners. That's always going to be in the top 3 as far as what won Best Picture. But look, I have weird ones on my top 10 list that not people wouldn't, like the movie Lonesome Dove, which was a 6-hour film that I think is one of the greatest films of all time. So. But really, if you want to go to the heart of the matter, the ones that I have posters on the wall are Casablanca and On the Water, and so it's really those top 2.
Nice. Ben?
I mean, the answer is going to change every day.
Hmm.
I'm rewatching The Conformist right now, which is just absolutely brilliant filmmaking, and it had been 20 years and I'd forgotten how wonderful it is. So now suddenly this is my favorite movie again. I'm watching just recently watched the remastered director's cut of The Cotton Club. Phenomenal film. Wasn't on the list before. With these changes that Coppola was finally able to make, it's straight up there. But if you forced me to choose one movie, I'd have to go with E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Perfect film. On the Waterfront is great too.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Any last pieces of advice any last wisdom you want to lay out into this ocean before we go?
You go ahead, Ben. You go first. I'll just go off of what you said.
It's an open forum. It doesn't even have to be about film. It can be whatever you want.
Well, I'll say this: invest in, and this is again not a plug for Filmmaking Stuff HQ because I'll give you other ways, but invest in your education. Meaning, if you're gonna go to these markets, don't go drinking all night, which we've all done, and there is something to be learned from that as far as relationships go. But also get up and go to all the panels, and it's like, and go see everything and learn and just have a love for the business, and read books and take stuff. But still, if you're gonna even pay for a seminar, do it. I mean, that's it. That you're investing in your education and learning. Or you say to me, oh geez, I gotta pay for the plane ticket. And I'm assuming, by the way, this is everything back to normal. So let's just put that asterisk there. Obviously, nothing's normal right now. But say it's a normal year. you're going to say, God, I got to pay for that plane ticket to Cannes, and then I got to go and get an apartment, and then I got to go and pay for all the food. All this. Yes, you do. Spend $3,000. Would you do that for an education? You know, you'll spend $1,000 on a new iPhone, but you won't want to do that to learn about the business that you want to be in for the rest of your life. Come on. That's my thing. Invest in your career. Invest in yourself.
Yeah, I think I would say, let's try this again. I think I would say invest in your community. And the big reason for that is that film is a collaborative art. And it's very easy for people to kind of step into this and think, you know what, I'm an auteur, I can do all the things. I crap gold, and I need all my cast and crew to show up and be dancing monkeys for a vision in my head that I probably can't actually communicate very well. Give the community around you the space and the opportunity to be brilliant, because we can always create better work and be more brilliant together when we're open to that than when we're going in with a huge ego and just trying to achieve something that doesn't take all the different voices and perspectives and brilliance of the people we work with into account.
Yeah, you know what, let me add one last thing to that. What he said is that I made a rule, like I do not, he's totally right about getting, like, every time I do a new movie, it's like, here's the crew, that's the gold stars. Like, I'll use them again. I want to make them better, and I want them to make me better, and blah, blah, blah. Here's the people I'll never work with again, you know? But the key is a warning is that don't just hire your friends. You know, my rule is this: I will never hire a friend unless the value exceeds the friendship, because that's the thing. Unless you know that they could get, you know, they're a beginner or whatever, but you see, and they'll be a hard worker and they'll learn, fine. But if you're doing it just like, hey, let me put my friends in here, and then they're the ones that are gonna let you down. You know, the number one crew guy is always the person that's great at their job and is a nice person. The number two crew person is the person that may be an asshole, but is great at their job. That's the number two. Down at the bottom is the person that's awesome, but is gonna screw up your movie. Doesn't matter. You know what? It's not about making friends and doing that. It's about the actual community of great filmmakers. You know, that's gonna go.
Amen. Well, gentlemen, thank you for donating this hour to elevate the community and teach us a few things we might not have known. Thank you. For our audience, please tune in next week as we reveal the summit schedule. And until further ado, Todd, why don't you take us out, my brother?
We're not.